Hi guys, good morning. Stefan from Winzerflander Gisbeck. I'm currently out in the vineyards, hiding in a little bit of shade. Currently it's around 9 o'clock in the morning and we're already over 30 degrees Celsius. So summer is definitely here. Quick little vineyard update. Basically flowering is done in most vineyards. We do have some later varieties that are currently in flowering, like Rotgipfler, like in the vineyard I am sitting right now. Just a quick little look. You can see this little Rotgipfler bunch is still flowering, and when I pull on it, there's still some flower dust, and yeah, it's quite nice. Downside, it's quite hot and quite hot and dry and droughtish. Flowering is never really good flowering, so we're probably gonna get some really loose bunches, probably some hens and chicks, which is good and bad, but yeah, it is what it is. We're currently also fixing up the irrigation. As you can see, we have here some irrigation, some drip lines. We're in a quite lucky situation where we have a lot of irrigation, most of our vineyards, and we're allowed to irrigate. We are still quite mindful with irrigation. Most of my colleagues have already irrigated once or twice, at least 2 times. Even some guys are on the 3rd pass. We haven't even started. So we'll start with the first irrigation pass right now, just to really mellow the thing and try to make sure there's as little stress on the vines as possible, and really trying to take out the peak stress. We're quite mindful with irrigation. We don't want to over irrigate. Yeah, we still want the vines to fight through, struggle, and make sure they don't have it too easy. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. So currently there's a lot of work going on, a lot of vineyard work throughout the day, a lot of spraying through the nighttime, organic spray. So yeah, right now we're trying to really basically hit the nail on the head and make sure that we're set up for a beautiful harvest, because flowering time is the most critical time of the year in terms of keeping your plants and vines safe and making sure everything's going through. Because let's take a look at the St. Laurent. This St. Laurent bunch is way ahead, and if you can compare it to the Rotgipfel, you can see how much bigger it is, but that's based because of the variety. But if you look really close, let me just pull off all of this flower caps, and then you can see, oh yeah, we have some small little shotgun pellet size berries, which is nice. I can already see that it's quite loose, and most of the berries haven't been, I don't want to say pollinated, but properly, but it's gonna be a loose bunch. But coming back to my point, you can see all of this basically dead flower caps, and they stick on there, and basically all of this just dries out and rots away, and that's a perfect food for botrytis and mildew. So you really want to make sure that you're quite smart and effective with your spraying right now. Otherwise you'll be in a lot of trouble in a couple of weeks. So yeah, a lot of work. Also, I'm out here in the vineyards tucking in shoots into the wire. This is a VSP, a more traditional basically trainee system, and we really try to take all of the shoots that are out here and positioned good. This is, for example, is a poorly positioned shoot, so we're just going to take that off. Just going to need some water, and the shoot is not really required. We're also going through making sure that the canopy is quite loose, as loose as possible, so a lot of air and wind can go through, so there's no water if it would rain, sitting for a couple days and it's quite humid in there. It's also something that those fungi like botrytis and mildew quite love. So yeah, like I said, it's quite crazy. I'll also give you a quick example of the difference between a tucked in row and a non-tucked in row. So yeah, you can see on the right that's a row that I still have to tuck in, so everything's kind of out there and quite bushy, but not in a good way bushy. And on this side, you know, this is all like pretty straight, pretty loose. Bunches are hanging out there, and you know, makes it a lot easier to keep those plants safe. Also, kind of a specialty or a thing we're doing as well is we run two different drainage systems. I'm not sure if you can hear it as much as I can, but it's so crunchy. This cover crop is so dry. It's crazy. Basically, it feels like straw. Yeah. That's okay though. We purposely mulched it super low so it would dry out, which means now it's basically sitting on top, cushioning the floor and making sure that nothing would erode, which is the main purpose. But as soon as it would start to rain again, you know, it will grow again and everything will be green. It's not dead. That's the most important thing. It's not dead. It's just almost, you could almost say it's sitting dormant for a couple weeks until we hopefully get some rain again. Alright, we're almost there. Don't laugh at me, guys. We have 32 degrees. It's hot. And I'm out here on like my 32nd try to finally nail this video. I'm a little out of breath. So, alright, right here we're into one of the bush vine vineyards. And I'm a big fan of those bush vines. As you probably saw earlier, even the Rotgipfel, the young vine, is trained as a bush vine. This just gives you a lot more of, I would say, flexibility in terms of how you can manage those vines. If it's like a super hot and dry year and it won't rain for a long time, what we're gonna do is just go through with the tractor and cut all of these loose hanging shoots rather short, just to make sure we're basically delaying ripening, and also make sure we have a higher acidity in the wines, which makes those hot vintages a lot nicer to drink and gives you a lot more complexity. A bumblebee just landed on my phone. Yeah, with the VSP on the other hand, that requires a lot of TLC. As you can see here, there's another vineyard that has not been tucked in properly. And then you have the bush vines on the other side. With the bush vines, they don't require any sort of TLC. We just really prune them nicely in the vineyards, make sure that the shoot positioning is good throughout the year. And although it looks kind of bushy, it is quite loose. So there's a lot of air coming through. There's no like standing water for a longer period of time. So that's actually quite a nice drainage system. So we're actually reverting to it. We used to have our wines like that 30 years ago, but then switched back because it was a different time. It was a different climate. Back in the day, this was known to produce like a lot of tonnage, a lot of yield, without a lot of work. And I would say then the big think around happened in Austria, where we really started to focus on quality instead of quantity. This is where we basically converted everything to the VSP, the vertical shoot positioning. Like I said, it just helps with ripening, and you have a little bit less yield, and everything just looks nicer, you know. It doesn't look as bushy. But as the climate is changing and it's getting hot and dry again, we're reverting to the bush vines. Main reason is we're further away from the ground, which means even though we have a cover crop and it really stops the soil and all the rocks we have in vineyards from radiating heat back, there is some radiation that comes back. So we just want basically to have our grapes as far away from the soil as we can. Also have it hanging right in the wind. And yeah, like I said, it's a lot looser. We don't have as much stress in terms of mildew diseases compared to the VSP. And I have a lot of vineyards that I can straight compare, so I'm feeling quite confident that switching back to the Vertigo actually is the right step in terms in terms of climate change, and the wines are ultimately better. And we can straight compare that year after year, and I do like the wines from the Vertigo a lot better. Yeah. Alright guys, I think that's basically it. I'm gonna go back into the cellar now and make like a wine tasting video before I'll sweat and die in the vineyards. Nah, it's crazy. It is crazy right now. But hey, it is what it is. We have to make the best out of it and find ways to adapt. And you know, that's what I'm saying. You have to be very fluent in terms of how you cultivate. You have to be quite mindful. And yeah, you know, normally I would love to have like a knee-high, beautiful flowering cover crop. You have a lot of bees flying around, a lot of deer eating it, rabbits, and you have this whole like big diverse little ecosystem in the vineyard happening. But yeah, we don't have it. We don't have the rain for it this year. We could irrigate more to maintain that sort of cover crop, but then it's just wasted water. So like I said, you have to be very smart and very ecological about what you do and the way you really start to do things. And yeah, it is what it is. Let's hope we get some rain without hail, which is the big risk right now. We're right in hail season. So yeah, everything will turn out fine, and it is what it is, and you know, we're super adaptive. Alright guys, talk to you guys soon, bye. Yeah, as you guys saw in the first video, I kinda had to flee from the vineyards. It was getting too hot. Downside is I have to go back in a couple of minutes to wrap up the vineyards, wrap up the tucking in, and yeah, anyway, now we're in the cellar. This is like what I call the old cellar with those big old gangster barrels. They're quite old now, they're quite gangster, they all have their own little thing going on, they're all quite different, some of them are quite funky, some of them are really cool and nice. But those barrels have been with us basically forever. They're all Austrian oak and roughly 800 liters. Yeah, also the Cuvée Neptune ages in them. So we're just gonna have a little sip in the cellar, which is something you normally shouldn't do because the cellar always tastes and smells weird and funny. So when you taste wines in the cellar, they always taste quite different when you compare them to like the tasting room or anything else. Yeah, so basically the Cuvée Neptune is a blend of sunflower and Zweigert. Almost 50-50, and like in some years there's like some random other barrel in there, maybe some Rösler, maybe some Cabernet, you know, whatever kind of fits. You know, most important thing for us, or for me with the Cuvée Neptune, is just like make something that is like vibrant, light, but also has like some dark, mean, I don't want to say masculine because I think it's a little over the top, but you know what I mean. But has something like that as well. It's quite perfumed, has some oakiness to it, but also some funk to it. Right there is a drain, so I'm a winemaker. I'm allowed to spit right in that. You shouldn't spit. Don't spit on your couch carpet. Don't do that. Yeah, this is just like a nice and easy super wine to drink. It pairs well with all sorts of dishes. It's mellow, it's smooth, has a little bit of less acidity than most of the wines, just to make it like smooth. It works perfectly well with any sort of dishes. Works still great with barbecue because the wine's still strong enough. And yeah, I would love to be able to tell you like a cool story how this whole wine was created and so on and so on. And actually there is. But it regards and revolves around the name Neptune. So it goes back a couple of generations. Well, my great-grandfather, he was like quite an accomplished, I don't want to say winemaker, but he was into wine. He was selling a lot of wine. He was not really into producing, but more into the selling. And in the 80s, the three villages around my village in Tatnov, where we live right now, they were all combined to make like one bigger village. So you have like one bigger legislation. You have one mayor, for like 5,000 people instead of like 1,000 people in every other village. So just to make things and administration a lot easier. That was like a big thing in the 80s in Austria. Anyway, so that was created, but actually it was created before the 80s. It just fell apart in the 80s. And once that fell apart and our little village has kind of found its independence again, my great-grandfather drove to Vienna and he saw a beautiful statue of a Neptune in a Viennese spa, and he was like, cool, I'm gonna buy that and give that to the little village, a sort of a statue of independence-ish. It sounds quite dramatic. It isn't that dramatic. Anyways, and so this is how like the whole Neptune thing started to revolve around the Landaus. Yeah, that's it. Enjoy the wine and cheers.